Many of you have expressed a misunderstanding of how to get rid of contour lines, or you possibly understand but you're just not quite sure how to get started. So I've created this video to kind of help you understand where you need to start to get rid of contour lines and how to get rid of those without making your drawing look weird, okay? So most of you have a drawing right now that kind of looks like this. You've got the shading in place. It's probably where it needs to be. It just looks flat because you still have all these contour lines in there like this. This kind of lends to what we call a stylistic approach to drawing. Stylistic drawings typically are drawings that are used for cartoons or coloring books. They're used to animate and illustrate rather than create a fine art image that looks realistic, okay? We want to get rid of these contour lines and allow value edges to create the edge of the object so that our cup looks more three-dimensional on the page, because that's always our goal when we're creating a drawing with shading, is to make the object look three-dimensional on a two-dimensional plane. So the first thing I like to do is I like to look at my cup and really see where highlights need to be. I'm looking at my cup outside your field of vision for the recording now, and I notice that there is an extreme highlight on the rim here, and there's highlights in these areas where I've left it white, okay? So I'm gonna go through, and in those areas I'm gonna get rid of any contour line that I might still see. So I'm getting rid of this one right here, and I'm gonna get rid of this contour line here because I don't need it. But many of you are saying, but now I can't see where the upper rim of the cup ends and begins. Well, the way that you remedy that is when I'm looking at the cup right now, I notice that there's a shadow right underneath where the lip of the cup is up there. So I'm gonna go through with my blending stump and just blend in a shadow there. And now I can see the white edge of the rim of the cup there. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the contour line up here on this edge as well. And I'm just gonna make sure that underneath that area, I go back in with my pencil and I shade in pretty heavy right there to make that area a little darker. And that's gonna separate it from the value of the shadow and the value of the rim of the cup. And I'm gonna go all the way to the edge doing that. I'm gonna do it on this side as well. Getting rid of that contour line. Contour lines make things look cliched or basic. So we just wanna make sure that that outer rim here on the very, very top is white. Gonna go back in and shade that area to make it stand out just a little bit more. Okay, now right in here it's a little bit lighter than the darker gray that I've got, so I'm going to kind of pull some of that value out of there, and I'm going to limit that gray area to just that upper part there. And I'm going to double check over here and make sure that I have done the same thing over here. Just going to erase out some of that value so it's not so dark. I keep it gray, okay? Now I'm going to work in this area here. I want to make sure that I go in and I erase out all the areas that should be white. So I'm looking, and there needs to be a little bit more value change right in here and all the way into here. Just want to get rid of some of those shadows. Got a little too heavy with the pencil there. And then right in this area here, we want to erase some of the value right there to give the upper ring of the cup a more distinct edge from the shadow that's right under it. And we're going to make that shadow that's right under it just a tad bit darker. Just to give it some more definition. like that. Okay? Now, let's look at these rings here. Many of you want to leave those rings on there, but in reality, those should just be areas of shadow, not solid contour lines. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to erase those contour lines out, even on the edge of the cup there. And I'm gonna go back in with my blender and make it gray. Make the area gray. And I'll make sure that I've got that contour line out. I forgot that one. And then I'm gonna take the point of my cap eraser and I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna try to make white lines to represent the white lines in that segmented area. And then I'll go back in with my pencil and just lightly, ever so lightly, add little shaded lines. They're a little thicker than contour, a little lighter, so they look a little bit more realistic than a solid, harshly drawn contour line. Okay? Now, right under the edge of that segment right here, there's a darker shadow. So we want to go in and we want to darken that area right in there up a little bit so that it pulls that segmented area to the forefront and puts the darker shadowed area into the background, and it makes it look like that top part is coming off the cup. I'm going to go through in this area right in here and read my values again to make sure that I've got them correct. I'm going to erase out some more shadows because I've gotten these areas just a little too dark on my cup. And I'll take my blender and kind of blend this area back here a little bit so it looks more natural. Doesn't look so much like Neapolitan ice cream. Going to do the same thing over here. And I'm going to blend that area of value down into the cup there. Again, that's going to make the cup look more three-dimensional. We're going to do the same thing for the segmented area here that we did before. We're going to get rid of all those contour lines. Just going to erase them out. They were nice as a guide to help us know where we needed to do this shading here, but for a final product, we just want to get them out. Going to take the blender, make this gray again. Going to take our pencil, erase out white areas. And ever so lightly go in and add a shadowed line. You kind of give it more definition there. And then remember, once again, we've got a dark shadow under that segment that we want to come in and get in there to make that pop out more. Gotta go back in with the blender. And then going to go through, do a little more erasing in here. We want to make sure that that's not too dark in there. So, going to make sure that we don't have that area too dark. And gonna blend that shadow in just a little bit here. I'm gonna add a dark shadow at the bottom here, just to make our cup pop out some more. We are gonna kind of go over this line here so that it doesn't look so much like a contour line. Make it a little thicker, but there is a segmented line at the bottom of the cup. You can probably see it in your cup. And then we'll come back to this cast shadow in a minute, and I'll show you guys how to darken that up to really make it look more realistic. But for now, I want to go in and address this top part right here. So a lot of you have this really dark shadow inside the cup there, and honestly, it doesn't exist. I'm looking at my cup right now, and there's a little gray area there, but it's not super dark. So I'm going to erase that out. I'm going to erase all of the lines out on the inside of my cup here. And I'm just going to take my blender and make this inside area gray. And sometimes your blender might not have enough graphite on it to get it the gray you want, so you just come in gently with your pencil and lightly add a little bit of graphite. Just like that, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna add that white edge that we erased earlier. I'm gonna go over it because it kind of got smeared, just to ensure that that white edge is still there, like so. And then on the inside of my cup, I can see that there's a white line right about here. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna erase that white line out. So highlight. It's literally the segment here. It is that segment on the inside of the cup. And then as my cup gets closer to the top, it gets lighter and lighter. So I'm just gonna go in and gently lift out some of this shadow at the top, just a little, so that it gets lighter. And then I'll go in with either my finger or my blending stump to kind of blend that area in a little bit, like so. Now, I want to get rid of this contour line, these contour lines up here. So if I'm looking at it, I notice that this top part is really white. And some of you are probably wondering, well, how are you going to see that edge when there's a white background without drawing the line? Well, when you get finished with your still life drawing, you're gonna go in the background and the area behind your cup, the table, or just the open air, you're gonna lightly shade it gray. So when you're done, and I'm not gonna shade my whole background gray because that would be time consuming and it's just not needed. But when you're done, you're gonna do that. And you're gonna notice that when there's gray behind the cup, it makes that white edge pop. because it creates an area where a darker value meets a lighter value, therefore creating an edge. And like I said, in your final drawing, that will be further shaded all the way around, all the way up here in the background. And notice how that makes the back edge of my styrofoam cup pop so that you see it a little bit more, okay? Now, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna take my blender and I'm just gonna lightly darken up the edge back here again so that we can see the top edge of the cup there, so that it looks white, because there is a highlight there. Okay, all right. Now, I told you guys that I was going to address this bottom shadow down here, so I'm going to pull the paper up some so you can see it. Now, right underneath the very, very bottom of the cup, there's always a shadow that's really, really dark. That should be the shadow that you make black or 0 on the value scale. So that's why I have really darkened that shadow up immediately underneath the cup. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to shade underneath that shadow to create a dark area as well. Because your cast shadow should be darker than anything else in the picture, okay? Notice how I kind of got into my cup a little bit there. I'm going to clean that up. I'm going to take my blender, I'm going to kind of blend that in so you really can't see the lines, because you want it to be smooth gradation. All the way down, okay? And you would essentially fill up this whole area for the cast shadow. Now remember, as the shadow gets further away from the object, the lighter it will get. So I'm not bearing down as hard as I did closer to the cup up here. So it's going to go from really, really dark to a dark gray. Still needs to be darker gray than your cup, the shadows on your cup. So if you're comparing it and it's not as dark as the shadows on your cup, then you need to make it darker, okay? That, or you've made your shadows on your cup too dark, one of the two, okay? But typically, it's just that you need to make your cast shadow darker. And cast shadows are really important. You want to make sure that you get cast shadows in, because they really add depth to the artwork, and they're going to make the objects in your artwork pop out more and look more three-dimensional. They just really add life to your drawing. Okay, got all that in. Kind of blend that. And now I have a nice cast shadow for my cup there. And again, remember, you guys are going to go back in and add a light gray behind this cup, and that'll make it stand out and look more realistic. Okay, now I'm looking at my cup right now, and I really, really don't like how dark these areas up here are. They just don't make visual sense. So I'm going to go back in, and I'm just going to lightly go over those areas with my pencil, just to lighten them up a little bit so that they don't look so harsh to the viewer. And to me, that looks a little more realistic. I'm just going to go in and blend a little bit so it still makes visual sense. Get that stuff out of there. Okay, all right. And there you go. That's how you get rid of contour lines in a drawing.